Hey guys, it's your boy Evix. I'm still not over the removal of Nocturnal Astrologian. I want it back. Please? Pretty please? Please don't make me beg. A few nights ago, I sat down and for my own fun hashed out what would Nocturnal Astrologian look like today in a modern Final Fantasy XIV setting. And then, I got salty as fuck, and I decided to throw this video together about how we could have an incredibly awesome healer that could fill in a sorely missed niche in this game. An engaging rotation on a barrier healer. There. I said it. Time for my comments to explode in fire, but you guys know that I have been a scholar main since the days of Eld, and that is not going to change. But you know what? I think that a lot of people might have forgotten that I am also the same one that quite literally many years ago, I know, the recesses of time, that I found Scholar's Rotation of Broil spam boring. I also said that Chain Stratagem doesn't add any meaningful gameplay difference for the Scholar, and that's still what I feel. Outside of Savage content or Ultimate, which I am taking Scholar into Dragon Song's Reprise Ultimate, it's just not that engaging for me, which always pushed me to the Astrologian. I wasn't sure if I was going to say pull or push there, but this always pushed me into playing Astrologian for its card gameplay. For all of Astrologian's still very simple Malefic spam, the card system pushed it above and beyond for me as a barrier healer with its fun cards. It added a lot. Now let's explore what a current modern Nocturnal Astrologian would look like, and I think people will be extremely positive to it actually. I genuinely think that a lot of people have a thought about what it would look like in a modern context. If anything, a modern day Astrologian would actually be even more significantly differentiated than Sage versus Scholar, and I think that would actually be an amazing thing, genuinely. Let's start out with the basic heal over time trickle effect that the Scholar has always been famous for with their pet. You know who the real healer is as I'm out there doing damage. Eos and Kardia now for the Sage are persistent heal over time effects. But did you know that Celestial Intersection for Nocturnal Astrologian used to be a very powerful targeted heal over time effect on a low 30-second cooldown? It healed for a total of 950 potency per use on a 30-second cooldown timer. In a modern setting, this would not change, other than the fact that now it has up to 2 charges following in sync with its current form. Instead of getting those 2 upfront barriers, instead the Astrologian would be able to give it 2 upfront heal over time effects. Front heal over time effect. What? Which initial cynical look at this might make it seem too similar to Kardia or the Fairy. People might be really concerned about that, and aha. Not at all actually. It's not a persistent effect given it's a 15-second duration with 2 charges that has a 30-second cooldown that you could opt to use in various situations or not. Instead of being a persistent effect, you'd have to time it out and think about where you'd use it. Or alternatively, with its 2 charges, you could opt to cleave this across, say, 2 tanks being smashed into the dirt. Let's say Leviathan E3S from way back in the day. Now we're really going back with that. But basically, or even heal a damaged DPS or do any number of things really. With 2 charges, you could do a lot of things. But that means that this can satisfy a very different set of niche situations while still allowing a trickle heal. So you're not going to be losing that. It's not like an inferior Sage or an inferior Scholar in this department. Do I have you intrigued? We're just getting started here. Now let's talk about Celestial Opposition. This used to be a skill that could apply a small off GCD barrier to the party. Of course, the skill got significant power value tweaks like its cooldown lowered to 60 seconds and a huge power boost to now be a 700 potency AoE heal. To approximate what it would do today, it would likely be something like an upfront heal of 250 potency and then a follow-up barrier of 250 potency. Essentially, this is to match the power of Scholar Seraph's Constellation. Now that might seem very boring to some, but it being on a 60-second cooldown versus Seraph's locked in at a 2-minute cooldown with roughly 22 seconds duration, which is very constrained, means that these Nocturnal Astrologian barriers would be far more flexible and apply in a very different way. Frankly, depending on the damage structure of the encounter, potentially this could be vastly superior, such as if there are only death-threatening AoEs every minute on a 60-second cycle rather than in quick succession. Panheimer from a Sage or Seraph's Constellation would simply not be available for that second instance because of their 2-minute cooldowns. Let me be clear though, this isn't to make the Astrologian better than them. They are not without their own merits. Seraph and Panheimer are brilliant in their own niches. Seraph at the same time bathes the field in powerful single target seraphic veils. Panheima simply has revolting value, very revolting value in multiple quick hit AoE. So this would still keep all three actually addressing three very different concerns and retain uniqueness between the barrier healers. Next up is Collective Unconscious, which today does a 500 potency area effect heal to the party, which is oddly enough in line with Sacred Soil from Scholar and Sacred Soil from Sage. If timed at the proper moment, it can provide mitigation for a single blow without decreasing your uptime. That is what it currently can do. But this isn't necessarily ideal, given current healer designs in Endwalker where multiple successive hits are very often going out now in newer fights. Sage has Panheima, White Mage has Lilybell, and Scholar arguably has Seraph to manage to numb the successive incoming blows without suffering major downtime. Lilybell and Panheima have a span or a reach about 15 seconds. I really want reach to become a term that we use. But for Astrologian, if we are going to be using Collective Unconscious, it's not realistic to hold Collective Unconscious doing nothing else for 15 seconds without a severe penalty as Astro. Cards may or may not be coming up depending on how you're using them. You might have, well, obviously you have damage to do. It's not a ideal situation. Now this is where I kind of deviate a little bit and want to talk about Macrocosmos, which is very important here. Macrocosmos is a very powerful ability, but it's been highlighted and, in my opinion, overpraised for multi-hit scenarios because of P3S, where the party's HP is locked in at not going to, like, death. Specifically, this is for Life's Agony's mechanic. If any member of the party's health hits 0, they're dead in literally any other situation, and Macrocosmos is essentially a worse Lilybell in those situations. One very clear example of this that I experienced myself is me taking Astrologian into P2S coherence that hits multiple times. I thought Macrocosmos would save the party, but instead we were simply wiped up. You could say that the hippocampus flushed us with their sewage deluge. Of course, because I'm not stupid, I'm not doing a strawman argument, of course now we can laugh at it with gear. We barely need to mitigate it at all. But in the early weeks of progression where we didn't have this gear, this was a very serious concern. Especially in current content, a mitigation will often go significantly further than a simple 500 potency heal over time up for 15 seconds, especially in multi-hit scenarios, especially in multi-hit scenarios. So we're giving Collective Unconscious the ability to apply an upfront mitigation that lasts 18 seconds. That's very powerful, and I feel gives even more validity to Nocturnal Astrologian. I think that this is a very, very, very powerful contender. Now let's talk about big berries, because I like big berries and I cannot lie, though other healers can deny. Because as a Scholar main since the dawn of time to progging in DSU now, one thing is always on my mind. Thick shields save lives. Recitation, protraction, dissipation, fey illumination, all the other heal amps outside of my control, unfortunately, combined together like all of the gems in the Thanos glove to allow me to release disgusting barriers every 90 seconds across the entire party. I personally call this Cole's I don't want to deal with this shit, fuck off barriers. And I am sorry, I know the Thanos glove memes are a little old, but you know what? This is my meme, and I am absolutely still going to use it. Now, Sage is significantly smaller, significantly more flaccid shields, however, are still being able to be boosted by Zoe and Physis too. It's fine. It doesn't make me happy. They aren't the thick shields. Thick shields save lives. I like thick shields. Okay, I'll stop. But this gets into what could easily be a 10-minute discussion on should Zoe be used with Numa for burst heal, or should Recitation be used with Indom for crit Indom, which fizz tons of heals. Too long didn't care version is it massively depends on the situation that your party's in. Now the Astrologian also has a similar ability to produce big beefy barriers. Ooh. We call it Neutral Sect, which is famously used to great effect against terminal relativity for E12S. Nocturnal Astrologian, Diurnal Astrologian, didn't matter. Terminal relativity was trivialized by this in many ways. I want to be careful about using the word trivialized, because that's like saying it trivializes current call. Ooh, be careful, Cole. Not fully trivialized, but it really, really made a difference. But this would also allow the Astrologian to tap into the extremely powerful heal over time effect as well, which would allow the Astrologian, as they do now, do big screw up big barriers with also a big recovery. And about the diversification of barrier healers, the Astrologian can continue to deploy this over and over and over again within that neutral sect window. Niche would be that it's slightly longer by 30 seconds cooldown, but allowing multiple bigger barrier deployments with heal over time effects. So while they might not be able to do something like that big upfront Scholar shield, they will be able to just deploy smaller shields with a heal over time effect over and over again. Again, this makes barrier healers very different from one another. Of course, this means that the baseline aspected Helios would revert to deploy barriers in Nocturnal stance rather than heal over time effect. To modernize this, I'm going to cite Scholar Sucker, which had a buff from 125% conversion rate for the barrier potency, now has a conversion rate of 160% barrier potency. This means the resulting AoE baseline barriers without any buffs are going to be 320 potency. Now to conclude this, Astrologian will of course retain the powerful healing effects that make it Astrologian. I'm not asking for Astrologian to be anything other than Astrologian as it has always been. It still retains light speed, essential dignity, which is honestly just a better lustrate, honestly. The powerful throughput tool Sinistry, which when necessary is an absolute blessing to have. Of course, you don't want to be in that situation all the time, but when you need it, it's great. Like cleave heal tanks, amazing. The brand new Exaltation single target is a fantastic ability. What about the fantastic horoscope ability? Like, I'm not asking for Astrologian to fundamentally be broken or completely different than it is today, but what me and others want is Nocturnal Astrologian back. It always was a great healer, many enjoyed, many people got T clears, clear, UCOP clears on content with those fights, and it is a genuine crying shame that we don't still have it in Mar in Final Fantasy XIV. It's been a few months and I've tried to let the dust settle, and I'm actually still not over it. And sitting down and hashing this out with you all, I'm sure that many of you will also see how well that it could function in today's modern Final Fantasy XIV. I think that this would be a fantastic healer and fill a niche that we actually don't have filled right now. And I don't know how else to really get this message or what I want out there, but many of us still want Nocturnal Astrologian back. I know sincerely, I'm hoping that the developers consider adding it back this expansion, maybe 6.2. Hoping, probably not, but I would love it. I am currently on the hopium. I really want to see Nocturnal Ast back. I love it. Anyhow, take care everyone and have a absolutely fantastic day.